Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking you to the Aceh province of Indonesia.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you're probably familiar with, Bahasa Indonesia, the national language.
Right. Yeah.
But we're going to kind of delve into a regional language
Okay.
that's, really intertwined with Aceh's cultural identity. Acehnese.
Acehnese, yeah.
And our source is this 1981 research report
Okay.
titled Kedudukan dan Fungsi Bahasa Aceh di Aceh,
Wow.
which translates to the position and function of the Acehnese language in Aceh.
Okay.
It's like a linguistic time capsule.
It really is. It gives us a snapshot of how Acehnese was used back then.
Right.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
Because language is constantly evolving.
Yeah, exactly.
So think of it as a baseline.
Yeah.
To understand how things might have shifted since then.
Exactly. So let's step back to 1976.
Okay.
Picture the bustling streets of Banda Aceh, the port city of Sabang, the rural communities of Piti and North Aceh.
Wow.
The report tells us that in that year,
out of a total population of over 2 million people in Aceh, a staggering 1,705,702
wow.
spoke Acehnese as their first language.
What's key here is that the research focuses on those for who Acehnese was their mother tongue,
Right.
suggesting a strong linguistic base within the province.
Yeah.
But it makes you wonder, though, how that number compares to today, given all the changes.
Right. And here's where the geographic puzzle gets even more interesting.
Okay.
While Acehnese was spoken widely across most of Aceh, the report mentions that it was used in only parts of South Aceh. I'm curious, why do you think that is?
Well, it's important to remember that even within Aceh, there's incredible linguistic diversity.
Yeah.
The report mentions other regional languages spoken there, like Gayo, Alas, and Jamie, just to name a few.
Yeah.
It's likely that these language communities interacted and influenced each other in complex ways.
Yeah.
Imagine those border regions.
Where different languages might have coexisted.
Right.
Maybe even blended together over time.
And that paints such a vibrant picture of Aceh's linguistic landscape.
Yeah.
But here's where things get really fascinating.
Okay.
The report highlights this intriguing dynamic.
Yeah.
While Bahasa Indonesia held the official language status, Acehnese reigned supreme in everyday life.
Interesting.
Family conversations, interactions between locals and officials, even casual chats at the market.
Wow.
It seems everyone defaulted to Acehnese.
What's intriguing is that this wasn't just about practicality.
Right.
The report found that people felt a strong emotional connection to Acehnese.
Okay.
A large majority of respondents said they'd be offended if they heard someone mocking it.
Wow.
That speaks volumes about the link between language and cultural identity.
It's like Acehnese was more than just words.
Right.
It was the heart and soul of the Acehnese people.
Precisely.
Right.
And to illustrate that connection even further, think about the historical role of Acehnese literature. The Hikayat Prang Sabir, a famous tale of resistance against Dutch colonialism, was written in Acehnese.
Wow.
This form of storytelling, known as a hikayat, is a type of epic poem, often used to recount historical events or heroic tales. These stories would be passed down through generations, keeping the language and cultural memory alive.
Wow, that's incredible. It shows how language can be used for such powerful social and political purposes. But I imagine that, like any living language, Acehnese faced the challenge of staying relevant in a changing world.
Of course.
The report actually touches on this tension,
Okay.
especially when it comes to incorporating words from other languages, particularly Bahasa Indonesia.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
There was a clear debate emerging even back then.
Okay.
Some people saw borrowing words as essential for Acehnese to evolve and keep up with modern needs.
Right.
Others worried that it would dilute the language's purity, that it would lose its unique character. It's a fascinating dilemma that many languages face even today.
It makes you wonder what those advocating for each side would say if they could see the world today with the internet and globalization influencing languages at an unprecedented rate. But let's dive deeper into the report's findings and explore exactly how Acehnese functioned in different areas of life. First up, the family. The report paints a vivid picture of how integral Acehnese was to the fabric of family life. Nearly all respondents said they spoke Acehnese with their spouses.
Wow.
These percentages were remarkably consistent across different regions of Ace, indicating a shared experience.
Yeah.
It seems Acehnese provide a sense of intimacy and connection within the home.
It was the language of love, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it came to communication between parents and their children, the use of Acehnese was again overwhelmingly dominant.
Okay.
But there's a nuance here that I found quite intriguing.
Go on. I'm listening.
Well, the report shows a slightly lower percentage of Acehnese use between fathers and their children compared to mothers and their children.
Interesting.
It wasn't a huge difference. But it's enough to make you wonder if other languages were already starting to influence family dynamics, perhaps through the education system or interactions outside the home.
That's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
It suggests that even back then, external factors were subtly shaping language use within families.
Yeah.
It sets the stage for understanding how larger societal shifts might have impacted Acehnese.
Absolutely. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's delve deeper into the specific ways Acehnese was used in different domains. From government and administration to everyday social interactions. It seems Acehnese had a remarkable ability to adapt and thrive.
Wow.
Ready to explore those nuances.
Let's dive in. I'm particularly curious to see how the report captured those linguistic choices and what they reveal about the social dynamics of the time. So we're stepping into the realm of government and administration. A world often associated with formality and official languages. I'm curious to see how Acehnese navigated that space.
Me too. And you know what?
What?
The report paints a picture that's far more nuanced than you might expect. While Bahasa Indonesia was generally used for those formal written communications and pronouncements, it seems Acehnese was very much alive and well in the everyday interactions within government offices.
The report specifically mentions that even between officials and their subordinates, Acehnese was frequently used, especially in those informal, off-the-record conversations. It's like there was this understanding that Acehnese could bridge the gap between hierarchy and create a more relaxed atmosphere.
And this was even more pronounced outside the confines of the office. Imagine a government official visiting a village to meet with community leaders. The report suggests that these interactions would naturally flow into Acehnese.
Interesting.
It seems it was the key to building trust and rapport with the local community.
It almost feels counterintuitive, doesn't it? You'd expect the official language to dominate those interactions. But Acehnese seems to have held its own, even in this sphere of government.
Absolutely. And remember, this is the late 70s, a time when Bahasa Indonesia was being promoted as the unifying language of the nation. So it speaks volumes about the enduring power of Acehnese.
Absolutely.
But let's zoom in on those everyday interactions between civil servants and the public. I was really struck by the report's findings here.
Do tell. What jumped out at you?
Well, it turns out that when people came to government offices for services, whether it was applying for a permit or resolving a local issue, the communication with civil servants was almost always in Acehnese.
Interesting.
It seems it was simply the most practical and effective way.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But what happened when these civil servants had to interact with the officials from other regions or the central government? Did they stick to Acehnese?
That's where things get interesting. For the most part, they would switch to Bahasa Indonesia, recognizing the need for a common language in those situations. But, and this is the fascinating part, the report highlights some exceptions to this rule.
Oh, I love exceptions. They always reveal those intriguing nuances. What were they?
Well, it seems that even when dealing with officials from outside those civil servants would sometimes continue to use Acehnese. Especially if the topic involved local customs or cultural practices. It's like they felt that Acehnese was the best way to convey the unique cultural context. That it was a matter of pride and identity.
It's a subtle but powerful act, wouldn't you say? By choosing Acehnese in those moments,
Right.
they were asserting their cultural distinctiveness
Yes.
within the framework of the larger Indonesian state.
Exactly. It shows how language can be a tool for negotiation, for representing those aspects of culture that are deeply rooted in a specific place and community.
I agree.
But let's shift our focus now to the broader canvas of social interactions.
Okay.
This is where the report truly comes alive,
Okay.
giving us a glimpse into the heart of Acehnese society.
I'm all ears.
Yeah.
What did the researchers observe in this domain?
Well, first and foremost,
Yeah.
the report makes it clear that Acehnese was the default language in almost all casual conversations, regardless of age or social standing. Imagine those chance encounters at the market, greetings exchanged between neighbors, lively debates at the coffee shop. Acehnese was the language that flowed through it all.
Nice.
The report states that over 90% of respondents used Acehnese in these everyday interactions.
Those are impressive numbers.
Yeah.
It speaks to the deeply ingrained nature of Acehnese in the social fabric.
And it wasn't just about starting conversations in Acehnese. People would seamlessly switch to it mid-conversation, even if they'd begun speaking in Bahasa Indonesia.
Wow.
It's like code switching.
Right.
The practice of alternating between languages was second nature to them.
For those unfamiliar with code switching, it's more than just a linguistic quirk. It often reflects the speaker's relationships, their sense of belonging, and their comfort levels in different social contexts. The fact that people would instinctively switch to Acehnese, even when initially speaking Bahasa Indonesia, suggests a deep-seated emotional connection to their mother tongue.
Exactly. And here's another fascinating tidbit.
Okay.
The report mentions that even some non-Acehnese residents, those who had lived in Aceh for a while, would sometimes initiate conversations in Acehnese.
Oh, wow.
It's like they recognized its social importance, its power to connect with the local community.
It really underscores the idea that language isn't just about communication. It's about navigating social dynamics and expressing belonging.
Absolutely. Now, the report also dives into some fascinating nuances in how Acehnese was used based on the relationship between speakers. For example, people were more likely to use Acehnese exclusively when talking to someone older than them as a sign of respect.
There's also a fascinating detail about how Acehnese was perceived in situations where people were trying to persuade or influence others.
Tell me more. This sounds right up my alley.
Well, the report suggests that many people believed using Acehnese, with its emotional depth and cultural weight, could be more effective than Bahasa Indonesia in swaying someone's opinion. It's like they saw it as a language of the heart, a way to connect on a deeper level.
It makes me think about the power of language to tap into shared values, to evoke those cultural touchstones that resonate deeply within a community.
Absolutely.
But let's move on to how Acehnese function in social gatherings, from casual get-togethers to more formal community events. I bet Acehnese was the soundtrack, so to speak.
You bet it was. The report's findings here are quite consistent. Whether it was a wedding celebration, a religious gathering, or a simple evening out with friends. Acehnese was the dominant language. It's interesting to note that even when these gatherings involved people from diverse linguistic backgrounds, Acehnese often emerged as the common thread, facilitating communication and a sense of shared experience.
It speaks to the inclusive nature of the language, its ability to bridge cultural divides and bring people together.
I agree.
But now I'm curious, how did this play out in the lives of students? We've got the family domain, the government sphere, everyday social interactions, but what about the world of education?
That's a great question. The report actually provides some valuable insights into how Acehnese was used, both within the formal education system and in students' social lives. Let's start with the classroom.
So picture a typical classroom in Aceh in the late 70s. Bahasa Indonesia was the official language of instruction. But the report acknowledges that many teachers, especially in primary schools,
would often switch to Acehnese.
It seems this code switching was particularly common when teachers were explaining complex concepts or clarifying instructions, especially for students who were still developing their fluency in Bahasa Indonesia. It's a reminder that even in a formal learning environment, the language of comfort and familiarity often plays a crucial role.
It's like a pragmatic approach to education.
Exactly. Now, step outside the classroom. And into the world of student social life. Here, Acehnese reigns supreme.
It's no surprise there. I can only imagine those lively conversations in the schoolyard. The banter during sports matches. The jokes shared among friends.
Precisely. The report highlights that whether students were hanging out after school, participating in extracurricular activities, or attending religious gatherings, Acehnese was their go-to language. It seems peer group influence played a significant role.
In shaping their language choices. Particularly in those informal settings.
It makes sense. Language is such a powerful marker of belonging.
Absolutely.
Especially during those formative years.
Yeah.
But what about religious education? Aceh has a strong Islamic tradition.
Right.
Did Acehnese find a place within that realm as well?
Absolutely. The report specifically mentions the use of Acehnese.
Okay.
In traditional Islamic boarding schools, known as pesantren.
Okay.
Acehnese was the primary language of communication among students.
Okay.
And even some religious instruction was conducted in Acehnese.
It's fascinating to see how Acehnese permeated both secular and religious spheres of education.
Right.
But let's zoom out a bit and consider the broader role of Acehnese in religious life.
This is where we see the language's spiritual dimension come to the fore.
Okay.
The report found that Acehnese was widely used in sermons, religious discussions, and even during Friday prayers, alongside Arabic, of course. It's a beautiful example of how language can become a vessel for faith and cultural identity.
It's like Acehnese was woven into the very fabric of religious practice.
Exactly.
But what about those traditional ceremonies and customs that are so integral to Acehnese culture?
That's where the cultural significance of Acehnese shines even brighter.
Okay.
From weddings to funerals to agricultural rituals.
Wow.
Acehnese was the language of choice. Embodying those customs and values passed down through generations.
It's like these ceremonies provided a space for people to connect with their cultural roots. And Acehnese was the key to unlocking that connection.
Precisely. The report even notes that even in urban areas where exposure to Bahasa Indonesia was more prevalent, people would often revert to Acehnese during these traditional events, almost as a way of honoring their heritage.
It's a testament to the enduring power of language, to evoke a sense of belonging and shared history.
I agree.
But we can't talk about culture without talking about the arts.
Right.
What did the report reveal about the role of Acehnese in artistic expressions?
This is where the linguistic richness of Acehnese truly blossoms.
Okay.
From traditional storytelling to musical performances to dance forms.
Wow.
Acehnese was the language that brought these art forms to life.
It's amazing how a language can become the very essence of a culture's creative spirit.
Absolutely. The report highlights the importance of Acehnese literature, particularly the hikayat genre, which we touched on earlier. These epic poems, often recounting historical events or heroic tales, were frequently performed in public gatherings, transmitting cultural knowledge and reinforcing a sense of shared history.
It's like these oral traditions served as a living archive of Acehnese culture, and this linguistic richness extends to other art forms as well.
The report mentions various traditional musical genres, like daiki and rapai geleng, which often feature lyrics in Acehnese. These musical traditions played a vital role in community celebrations and religious festivals.
It's as if the music itself embodies the rhythms and nuances.
Precisely. And then there's the captivating world of Acehnese dance.
Oh, wow.
The report describes several traditional dance forms, such as Seman and Sudari, which are known for their intricate movements and rhythmic patterns. These dances often incorporated chants or songs in Acehnese, adding another layer of cultural expression.
It's clear that Acehnese was far more than just a means of communication. It was the lifeblood of Ace's cultural tapestry.
It really has.
This 1981 research report has given us such a rich and detailed portrait.
It really has.
Of the language's diverse roles in society.
But now as we approach the end of our journey back in time,
yeah,
I can't help but wonder, how has the Acehnese language weathered the storms of change over the past 4 decades?
Yeah.
How has it adapted to the forces of modernization and globalization?
Those are the million-dollar questions. And that's precisely where we'll pick up in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
So, listener, get ready to shift gears as we move from the past to the present, exploring the contemporary landscape of the Acehnese language. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've spent the last 2 parts of our exploration traveling back in time to 1981, immersing ourselves in the world of the Acehnese language.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, we've seen how Acehnese functioned as the language of the home, the community, and even government administration.
It's true.
Despite Bahasa Indonesia's official status.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
Yeah, and we've explored its deep cultural roots, how it was woven into everyday social interactions, religious practices, traditional ceremonies, and artistic expressions.
But now, let's fast forward to the present day.
Okay.
It's 2024.
Wow.
Over 4 decades since that research was conducted.
Right.
It's time to ask ourselves, what's become of Acehnese?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
The world has undergone a seismic shift in the past 40 years.
For sure.
Driven by technology, globalization, and migration.
It's a whole new world.
How have these forces impacted a regional language like Acehnese?
That's a question that's relevant not just for Acehnese.
Right.
But for countless languages around the world, facing similar pressures.
So let's put on our speculative hats for a moment.
Okay.
Imagine we were to conduct that same research today.
Okay.
What changes do you think we'd find in the use and perception of Acehnese?
That's a tough one.
What do you think, listener?
I think one of the most obvious changes would be in the realm of technology.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The internet, smartphones.
Yeah.
Social media. They've all created new spaces for language use.
Yeah.
And they've also introduced new dynamics of power and influence.
Right.
Would Acehnese have carved out a space for itself in the digital world?
That's a fascinating question. Would we see websites in Acehnese? Social media posts? Would young people be texting in Acehnese? Or would the dominance of English and Bahasa Indonesia online have pushed Acehnese further to the margins?
It's hard to say.
Yeah, and think about the impact of increased mobility and migration.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Aceh has undoubtedly seen an influx of people from other parts of Indonesia, and perhaps even beyond.
Right.
Has this led to more linguistic blending, more code switching?
It's possible.
Or has it resulted in Acehnese being used less frequently in public spaces?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's hard to say without conducting new research.
Right.
But it's certainly something to ponder.
Definitely.
And what about the attitudes towards Acehnese?
Well, that's an important one.
Do people still feel the same sense of pride and emotional connection to the language?
I would hope so.
It's possible that the younger generation, who've grown up in a more globalized world, might have a different relationship with Acehnese than their parents or grandparents.
Yeah.
Perhaps they see it as more of a heritage language, something to be cherished and preserved, but not necessarily used in all aspects of their daily lives.
It's a possibility.
Or perhaps they've found creative ways to integrate Acehnese into their modern identities, blending it with other languages and cultural influences.
Right.
Think about the potential for music, art, and literature to bridge the gap between generations and keep the language alive.
That would be amazing.
Exactly. Language isn't static.
Right.
It's constantly evolving.
And while there are certainly challenges facing regional languages like Acehnese, there's also the potential for resilience.
Right.
And even revitalization.
This deep dive has given us a window into the past.
It really has.
But it's also sparked a conversation about the future of Acehnese.
I agree.
We encourage you, listener, to continue exploring.
Yes.
Seek out contemporary voices. Read about current linguistic research, and perhaps even engage with Acehnese speakers.
That's a great idea.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be inspired to conduct your own deep dive into the present-day world of Acehnese.
It could happen.
And share your discoveries with the world.
That would be awesome.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating journey.
Yes, thank you.
Through time and language.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Keep diving deep.